Anyone who's been in a relationship knows that when your partner approaches you and says, "Honey, we need to talk," it's usually followed by something that could tear your world apart, or at least it seems that way. Well, tonight, we need to talk about Davion Mitchell, who had a major opportunity to start with De'Aaron Fox out and wasted it. Kings lose to the Pacers in Indiana. You're listening to Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. Time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season long. Today presented by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10 News. And tonight I'm actually feeling really grateful. And I'll explain that at the end of tonight's podcast. But even with the Sacramento Kings losing to the Indiana Pacers tonight, I'm not mad at it. I'm really not bothered. The expectation was that the Kings were going to, of course, have a more tough time with De'Aaron Fox being out for personal reasons. But I really appreciated, and part of me was actually pretty surprised by the fight and the response of the Sacramento Kings in this game. They fell behind by 19 points at one point in Indiana. They were struggling guarding the perimeter. Offense looked disjointed, of course, without De'Aaron Fox, and especially when the periods of time where Domantas Sabonis was off the floor, so no Fox or Sabonis were in the game. The Kings really struggled on offense. None of that was surprising to me, but the fact that the Kings were able to fight through that, battle through that, make this a game when you compare this game tonight in Indiana to the Kings and Pacers game in Sacramento. When the Pacers fell down big, they never recovered, and they just continued to fall down and down and down until they were eventually blown out in that game. The Kings did not quit. They fought back, and they put together a solid, I thought, chance to win at the end of the game. Execution late. Kevin Huerter deciding not to go for that layup with a handful of seconds left, and instead going to that Harrison Barnes three to try and tie the game. Didn't end up working out. Then the Kings wasted like 5 or 6 seconds and didn't foul at the end of the game. So Pacers win this game, whatever. The Kings are now 2-2 so far on this 7-game road trip. But to me, De'Aaron Fox being out changes everything when it comes to expectations, because coming into this road trip, right, I said 4-3 is the bare minimum. 5-2 is the expectation, and then 6-1 or 7-0 is cherry on top, right? Icing on the cake. Well, perspective changes with the change of context, and with De'Aaron Fox being out for personal reasons, and we have no idea how long he is going to be out, those expectations to me change from 4-3 being the bare minimum to 4-3 being the goal. If the Kings can find a way through these final 3 games of this road trip, which is in New Orleans and then back-to-back games against the Houston Rockets, and the New Orleans Pelicans will be playing the Kings on a second night of a back-to-back, which actually, funny enough, has been something that the Kings have struggled with. I think they're 2-7 this season against teams on the second night of back-to-backs, which just does not make sense. But anyway, if the Kings can find a way to win 2 out of those 3, we call that a successful road trip, and the Kings go home, especially if they're without De'Aaron Fox for those final 3 games. Now, unfortunately, I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but I've seen the reactions on Twitter, and I've received messages, I've seen comments on the podcast from when we found out yesterday that Fox was not going to be playing. Speculation is that the personal reasons for why De'Aaron Fox is not playing and not with the team anymore at this point in time is because his wife, Rasay, is having their first son together, Rain. That is, again, speculation, has not been confirmed, but I think we can connect the dots. I don't care how long De'Aaron Fox is out. And I don't care how long this playoff drought has been. I don't care how desperate we are as fans and media members covering the team to see this team get good and not want to see this team waste the opportunity that they find themselves in with the 3rd seed here in February. I don't care about all that. what's happening with De'Aaron Fox off the floor, if it's indeed what's happening, is far more important. Far more important. So what I don't want to see from any Locked On Kings listeners or anyone interacting with me, period, really, is anybody dragging Fox or questioning Fox or using this incredible moment in his life for any kind of negative purpose. I became a father 17 months. Is it 17? Oh my God, yeah. 17 months ago. And it was hard enough for me to balance my work schedule and the podcast schedule and everything with that. And I didn't have to travel across the world, and I didn't have the expectation of hundreds of thousands of people and just the NBA. I didn't have to worry about that. I worried about the NBA schedule, but I didn't have to worry about the NBA lifestyle, right? And the expectations that are on the shoulders of De'Aaron Fox. That is something that he and his family should not worry about, period. Now, from people that I have talked to who happen to know the Fox family pretty well, and especially know Rasay, they've said that Rasay would not allow Fox to miss that much time. She's a huge supporter of what De'Aaron does. She knows that De'Aaron is, of course, incredibly supportive to her. So this is just secondhand that I've heard. I don't have any kind of relationship with De'Aaron off the floor. I don't have any kind of relationship with Rasay at all. All I'm saying is this. Can we separate the basketball takes and frustrations that we may have with Fox at any time over the course of the season? Or it's one thing to be critical of Fox when he misses a shot or he's having a bad night. It's another thing completely to be critical of De'Aaron Fox for choosing his child and his family over basketball games. And I think it's important to bring this up because Jason Tatum earlier this season received some flack and some undeserved hostility and negativity from the Boston media for choosing to miss a Celtics game to attend his son's, I think it was his son's 4th birthday. Like, that's a no-brainer to me. That's an absolute no-brainer to me. I hate to break it to you, as important as you guys are to me and as much as I love this podcast, if I had to dump this podcast to go do something for my son and go do something for my family, done. Like, done. So I'm spending more time on this than I want to, but it's something that's important to me. And again, as someone who desperately wants to see the Kings win as many games as possible and secure a top 4 seed and make it to the playoffs, and I know that the West is still close enough for the Kings, if they go on a big slide because they're missing their star, they could fall into the play-in picture. I'm aware of this, but things are more important in life than basketball and the Kings making the playoffs, believe it or not, with as much importance as we put into it. So I hope that De'Aaron does not receive any kind of negativity for focusing on his family. There are a ton of people that I know are in Kings fans who are being extremely supportive of what Fox is going through. And as the team showed tonight with their effort and with their fight and with their play, that they're capable of having success without him, right? Domantas Sabonis didn't look dominant by any means, so he can look even better than he did in tonight's game. And I'm telling you, if the Kings play and fight like they did tonight for the remainder of these 3 games of this road trip, then they're going to go 2-1 minimum, and they're going to go 4-3 for the road trip period. And that, again, is the goal for me. That is the goal now if De'Aaron Fox is out. But we don't know. Fox could rejoin the team at any time. We have no word on that. Of course, if we hear anything about that, I'll share that on my Twitter at MattGeorgeSack, and we'll discuss it here on a future Locked On Kings podcast. All right. It's time to, maybe I spent so much time talking about De'Aaron because I'm avoiding having the hard conversation that we need to have about Davion Mitchell. I'm a big fan of Davion Mitchell. Huge fan of Davion. He is one of the hardest workers on the team, one of those first to arrive at the gym, last to leave type guys. Quiet, puts his head down, works. But off night, that we affectionately call him, his nickname Off Night, for how he defensively causes off nights for some of the best guards in basketball, and at times he just makes life a lot more difficult for anybody that he's guarding, right? That is where the Off Night nickname came from, and that it was from his time in college. Unfortunately, Off Night is now starting to tell the story of his offensive production, because every single night offensively for Davion Mitchell these days is an off night. This was a major opportunity for Davion tonight with De'Aaron Fox out. Now, I have realistic expectations. I wasn't expecting Davion Mitchell to pick up where De'Aaron left off and carry the load. But if Davion Mitchell is better tonight, the Sacramento Kings have a very, very, very good chance of winning this game. Davion Mitchell was borderline unplayable. That's why we didn't see him in the game for a long period of time at the end. That's why we saw the Sacramento Kings go with a no point guard lineup. That was like Malik Monk, Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and Domantas Sabonis. Like, he did not have an option. He, being Mike Brown, did not have an option other than that. So 3 points, 1 of 5 shooting from the field, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 1 turnover, minus 19 in 22 minutes. Now, the plus-minus stat can be misleading, and the plus-minus stat is typically a either positive or negative reflection on an individual player for how a team is performing. So take that with a grain of salt. What's more important to me is that not only did Davion not really have any kind of impact offensively scoring the basketball, he had very little impact distributing, very little impact rebounding, which doesn't surprise me as an undersized guard. He didn't do anything. And then defensively, we know he's important defensively, and he could have good defensive moments, and maybe there were a few that he had in this game that they're just not that elite level of Davion, that so we kind of get used to him or take them for granted a little bit. I'm aware of that. But overall, Davion Mitchell tonight was a non-factor. He was non-existent, and he struggled to get minutes as of late. We've seen his minutes just trend down and down and down and down and down, and I've seen a lot of people discussing this saying, well, if he had a more consistent stretch of playing time. Like, it's difficult to imagine a player like Davion Mitchell trying to find his offensive rhythm and his offensive flow when he's playing in 4, 5, 6-minute spurts, essentially when De'Aaron Fox is out of the game. Like, Fox and Mitchell don't really share the floor too much, and that's because Davion Mitchell doesn't really do anything on the perimeter either offensively and doesn't really help the Kings in that sense either. Malik Monk or Kevin Huerter are far better options for the Kings in that sense, and that's why Mike Brown goes with those options. So I sympathize with Davion in the sense that it's hard for him to carve out his role and get into any kind of rhythm or flow offensively when he's playing in such short spurts. But at the same time, so many different players who are new to this system and new to this team and have only been here for a short period of time compared to Davion, who this is just his second season, but Davion's been here longer than they have. They seem to be picking up and figuring out how to be effective in limited bursts that have gotten them more opportunities on offense, and Davion just does not seem to know how to fit or where to fit. And what's most concerning to me is Domantas Sabonis is the easiest player on the planet to play with. And that's not just words out of my mouth. Like, Kevin Huerter has said that about him. Multiple teammates have said that about playing with Domantas Sabonis. Everybody seems to come in and know that they can have a two-man game with Domas, which is a credit to Domas and his playing style, right? He and Huerter have a great reputation, or a great working. They work well together. Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis work really well together. Of course, Fox and Sabonis. Like, he works well with every single player out there. For some reason, Davion Mitchell, the point guard, the primary ball handler in the pick and roll with one of the best passing bigs in the league, he cannot figure out how to work with Domas. And that's concerning to me. Because if you can't figure out how to play effectively with one of the best and one of the easiest guys in the league to play with, then you're in a world of trouble. You're in a world of hurt. So what do you do with Davion? Is Davion at risk of losing his job? I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think it's that drastic at this point in time, but he's trending in that direction, and he's been trending in that direction for quite a while. Davion Mitchell has become an offensive liability, and here's the reality. You look at this Kings roster, and you point at the two best defenders on this roster, Davion Mitchell and KZ Okpala, both with zero impact or very minor impact on the offensive end. KZ Okpala can't get any kind of consistent role with this Kings team, despite how effective of a defender he is, especially against wings, because of his inability to space the floor, hit open shots, and contribute offensively. Davion Mitchell is also getting to that point. And while Davion has had a handful of moments this season where we see that off-night defense, right? We see that lockdown defense, and it's so exciting, and it's so impactful, and it makes the difference. Davion Mitchell has changed a handful of games or helped change games over the course of this season. So we know it's still there. We know there's so much value to Davion Mitchell's game. But when we were all expecting hopefully a continued development and continued improvement for Davion on the offensive end of the game, offensive end of the ball going into his second season with the team, instead we've just gotten this colossal steep drop-off. colossal drop-off. And now you hear rumors of the Sacramento Kings looking at a player like Matisse Thybulle, a elite defender, which I think Davion Mitchell has the potential to be an elite defender. Both Matisse Thybulle and Davion Mitchell, not really known for having offensive games. However, statistically, when you look at Matisse Thybulle as he's not a good three-point shooter. He's shooting 33% from three-point range this season, right? However, in wide open three-point shots, he's shooting 40.8% compared to Davion Mitchell, who takes 1.6 wide open, which is a defender not within 6 feet of him, three-pointers a game. So almost 2 three-pointers a game. Davion Mitchell is shooting 32.5%. So if the Kings go out and get a guy like Davion or Matisse Thybulle, brings you elite defense right away that, of course, this Kings team could use both on guards and on wings, but on the perimeter, period. Matisse Thybulle provides that. And he at least has a noticeable statistical improvement over Davion in wide open three-pointers, which are going to be a lot of the looks that Matisse Thybulle would get. There are a lot of the looks that Davion Mitchell gets on offense, which I don't necessarily know if that's the most effective way to use Davion Mitchell, but that's how Davion's being used. That's what works best surrounding Fox and Sabonis, is having a guard out there that can hit wide open threes because of the attention that the two of them draw. If Matisse Thybulle can do that better than Davion Mitchell, yeah, damn right the Sacramento Kings will be considering pulling the trigger on that move. Again, I'm not in doom and gloom mode on Davion yet. I'm concerned, but I'm not in doom and gloom mode yet. Where are you at with Davion Mitchell? Let me know. At MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn. And as a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members that you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. It's like having an NBA or professional sports scouting department at your fingertips. It helps you identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs, and you can connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we're going away from the Sacramento Kings, kinda, here. Kyrie Irving, the big news of the day in the NBA. Kyrie Irving demanding a trade from the Brooklyn Nets, saying that he will leave in free agency this offseason if he's not traded by next Thursday's deadline. Why is this important to the Kings? Well, it's not important through the traditional sense because the Sacramento Kings should have and hopefully do have zero interest in acquiring Kyrie Irving. I'm good. I understand Kyrie is averaging 27, 5, and 5. I understand he's an all-star starter in the Eastern Conference. I know Kyrie's got game. I don't want Kyrie Irving anywhere near the Sacramento Kings franchise. And I personally don't think Kyrie Irving wants to be anywhere near the Sacramento Kings franchise unless he's playing them on a game night, right? So we're not talking about it from that perspective. That's a waste of time. Here, if you want that headline, here's it straightforward to you. The Sacramento Kings should not be and probably are not interested in Kyrie Irving. All right, glad we got that out of the way. So why does it matter to the Sacramento Kings? Well, it matters because reportedly the three most interested parties or teams in acquiring Kyrie Irving, the LA Lakers, no surprise there, the Phoenix Suns, and the Dallas Mavericks. Three Western Conference teams all biting at the heels to some extent. Maybe not the Lakers. They're down kind of in the pits right now. But the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns, two teams that we especially expect to be nipping at the heels of the Sacramento Kings in the Western Conference standings for the remainder of this season. And that leads into a bigger point for me, which has nothing to do with Kyrie and everything to do with this trade deadline period. I'm expecting this to be a pretty boring and maybe underwhelming trade deadline for a lot of Kings fans. And truth be told, I'm okay with it. Like if we get through Thursday's deadline, and on Thursday's Locked On Kings podcast, I'm saying, well, the Sacramento Kings team is the exact same. They didn't make any moves. I have zero issue with that. Zero. Because this team has gotten you this far. I know there are holes on this team. I know there are concerns about this team. But all things considered, I trust this team to accomplish the goal of this season, which is getting the Kings into the playoffs, and hopefully, whether it's winning a playoff series or losing, regardless, like we know this team's not going to the Western Conference Finals, right? Maybe I could be proven wrong, but at this point in time, I feel pretty confident saying that. We know this team's not going to go to the NBA Finals. Hopefully, I'm wrong. What's most important for this team is getting to the playoffs and getting that playoff experience. This team, as constructed, can accomplish that, and then it's on this next offseason and the team next year to build upon that, right? So if the Kings stay put at the trade deadline, or if they make a minor move, which is like a Matisse Thybulle, or a 7th or 8th man in the rotation type move, a backup big, whatever it may be, fine, cool. Like, it's not going to be something to freak out about like we did when the Kings traded Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis last trade deadline, right? The Kings already made their big splash move. There's really no reason to expect or no need for the Kings to make another splash move. Plus, they don't want to move on from the pieces required in order to make that splash move. I'm talking specifically about Keegan Murray more than anything else. So why is this trade deadline most important? What are we going to be paying attention to, or should we be paying attention to as Kings supporters from the Kings' perspective about this trade deadline? What the rest of the Western Conference is doing, and how those teams bid against one another. Like, if the Golden State Warriors are trying to improve, and they see the Los Angeles Lakers go out and get Kyrie Irving, they know that that could impact their ability to actually make the playoffs or get the spot that they want in the playoffs. So, will the Golden State Warriors, who it makes zero sense for me why the Golden State Warriors would want to acquire Kyrie Irving, and they're not one of these 3 teams listed, right? Let's talk about the Phoenix Suns. We know they're a team interested, right? They probably would make Chris Paul available in that trade. I have no idea what the Brooklyn Nets would ask for. The Rudy Gobert trade completely broke trade packages, period, so I'm sure Brooklyn is going to ask for a haul upon hauls. Who knows? But the Phoenix Suns and Los Angeles Lakers, how desperate are they? I mean, the Lakers are always desperate, right? They're always trying to get in, and they're always trying to acquire stars, and it's a shame that the Lakers can treat Russell Westbrook as terribly as they've treated him. I know Russ is not fully blameless in this situation, but the Los Angeles Lakers organization have not treated Russell Westbrook well. The fans, the organization, his teammates, ownership, like they have not treated Russ well over the last couple of seasons that he's been there. And yet the Lakers are still the Lakers. It's still Los Angeles, so Kyrie wants to go there, or Kyrie would go there. And they are in the hunt for acquiring Kyrie Irving, even though they have zero assets to trade. Like their next draft picks they can trade are like 2027 and 2029. Like, useless, right? The Lakers have zero assets, but somehow they're in the mix, and maybe they're the front runner to land Kyrie just because of Kyrie and LeBron. Whatever. Regardless, how desperate are the Phoenix Suns to make that move and take him away from LA so that they could not only be better than LA and increase their chances of beating out LA to the playoff spot that they want, but they can establish themselves as a team that's still capable of making deep runs. That's where they're at. Like, with how good Devin Booker is, I know DeAndre Ayton's been a bit disappointing, and that relationship has been a little bit rocky, but the Suns 2 years ago were in the NBA Finals. Like, they expect to get back there. They want to get back there. They're trying to win right now. The Dallas Mavericks, they've been trying to figure out how to build around Luka Doncic, who is already a Hall of Famer. He's a super, super, super mega star, right? I don't know if Kyrie Irving is the right player to put next to Luka to build around Luka or whatever, but the Dallas Mavericks are the 4th seed behind the Sacramento Kings right now. They're trying to solidify themselves as legitimate contenders in the Western Conference. Basically, everybody's trying to catch up to where the Denver Nuggets and Memphis Grizzlies are at in the West. The clear top 2, although the Kings are creeping up on the Grizzlies with how they're sliding a little bit. I'll say this. In my opinion, the champion this year is coming out of the East. Like, I don't think the champion is in the West. I could be wrong, and there could be teams that catch fire and surprise us. I think it's going to be either the Brooklyn Nets. Sorry, not the Brooklyn Nets anymore. I think it's going to be either the Boston Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks that are NBA champions, just my opinion. But again, going back to this trade deadline, what does Golden State do? What does Phoenix do? What does Dallas do? Do the Portland Trailblazers, who are outside of the play-in picture right now, but they still have Dame Lillard, does that team completely blow it up with Yusuf Nurkic not coming back until after the trade deadline? Like, which teams outright tank for Victor Wembanyama? And we already know there are teams in the cellar of both conferences that are trying to do that. Who are the buyers? Who are the sellers? I think there are going to be more buyers than sellers, at least in the Western Conference. That all affects the Kings. So the Kings have to be paying a little bit of attention to that, but the Kings shouldn't be concerned beyond a reasonable amount that a team is going to make such a colossal move that they're almost guaranteed to leapfrog the Kings. Honestly, even with the Dallas Mavericks in the 4th seed and the Kings in the 3rd seed, and it's like a game and a half difference between them or something like that. I'm not exactly a Kyrie Irving fan, so maybe this is more of my personal feelings getting in the way. I don't think Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic together, for the haul that it's going to take for Dallas to get Kyrie, I don't think that should make the Kings concerned that they're going to lose that 3rd spot to Dallas. It's very possible, but I don't think it should overly concern the Kings. I think the Kings should feel pretty comfortable, not complacent, but pretty comfortable with where they're at, but monitor what the other Western Conference teams are going to do at this trade deadline. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by a new sponsor here of Locked On Kings. That's FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features to make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000. That's right, $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Yeah, it's like an insurance policy for betting. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. And of course, they have fun bets and future bets involving the NBA game lines. I'm sure there's going to be a bet for Kyrie Irving's landing destination if there isn't one already. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. And best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So when you win, cash in right away. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, I'm ending tonight's podcast on a bit of a different and a bit of a personal note. So I don't blame you if you're going to tune out and check out now, but I hope you stick around because this is something that's pretty important to me. And now, before I go deeper into this, I want to preface this by saying this is not about me, and this is not intended at all to be any kind of look at me and the charitable contributions that I'm making and stuff like that. That's not what this is intended to be. And if it comes off that way, it's not my intention. I really apologize. I had the opportunity to treat a Kings fan and his daughter to a Kings game not too long ago. Unfortunately, I think it was the Kings-Raptors game, which might have been the worst home game or one of the worst home games of the season. So unfortunately, the Kings didn't help me out there. But I still was able to get them tickets to the Kings and Raptors in the lower bowl. And why this means so much to me is that the fan took, and I'm not using his name and anything because I don't know if he wants me to or not, but he took his daughter, and it was her first Kings game. And that was, when he told me that he was taking her and it was her first Kings game, it already made me feel good, already made it more than worthwhile, right? But I received a letter. I came into work today, and on my desk right behind me, there was a letter from the two of them. And I want to read it really quick. The first part is written by his daughter. It says, "Thank you for the Kings tickets. My dad and I had a good time at the game. I like to see the players in person. My favorite player is Keegan Murray." She has good taste. "I liked yelling Murray each time he made a shot. I will never forget going with my dad." That line there got me a little bit. And then he wrote saying, "Thank you so much, Matt. It was an incredible experience with my daughter at the game. Next time they will get the W." Sorry about that part. This means a lot to me because I grew up here in Sacramento. And I grew up going to Kings games with my uncle. My uncle was a season ticket holder at the time during the glory years, the late 90s, early 2000s. And I was extremely fortunate enough to go to over 100 games before I even started covering the team professionally. I didn't have a dad. I have a dad. My mom and dad are divorced. My dad lives on the other side of the country. I've seen my dad 3 times in the last 15, 16 years. The last time I saw my dad was my college graduation, which was almost 10 years ago. No, almost 6, 7 years ago. So I didn't get these moments with my dad that I see so many fathers have with their children at Kings games. But I got them with my uncle, and my mom took me to games too. And that's taking me to those games is how I fell in love with the sport. And I didn't just fall in love with the sport. I fell in love with the fans. I fell in love with the Sacramento Kings, and that became my life. Like, it's because of my uncle taking me to those games, my mom taking me to those games, that I am where I'm at. I have the career that I'm at. I get to talk about the team that I love. The Kings were my identity and have been my identity for a long time, in a healthy way, sometimes unhealthy, but for the most part in a healthy way. And like I mentioned earlier, 17 months ago, I became a father. And I haven't had the opportunity to take my son to a game yet, not because I'm working the games, but because my son does not sit still, and my son would run down the stairs and run onto the floor and want to grab the ball. He's like a dog in that sense. So he's not ready yet. He's not ready, and trust me, as much as I want to dress him up like a little lion and take him and take a night off of watching a game from a media perspective and just enjoy the game with him as a dad, I can't do that yet. I'm going to be able to do that very, very soon. But to know that I in some way could help contribute to a father and a daughter making those memories. And to all of you amazing dads out there. Now, I know there are also amazing mothers that take their kids to these sporting events too, and you're incredible as well, but I'm speaking from the dad perspective. All of you and I see you, right? I interact with you. I have the opportunity to interact with you from time to time, but so many fathers that when I'm scanning the crowd sitting from my seat in the Golden One Center and I see the father and son high fives, I see the excitement of a boy or girl coming to a Kings game. And when I knew I was going to a Kings game as a kid, my entire day it was like Christmas Day. It was the slowest day ever because I knew that night I was going to go to Arco Arena and see Chris Webber and Mike Bibby and Peja and all my I could not function when I knew I was going to a Kings game that night. And to see that, and to see the fathers take joy in that, and for the Sacramento Kings to finally be good to attract more of those families, it's always meant a lot more to me than maybe it should for normal people. Again, it's not about me donating tickets, because I'm really, truthfully, not as charitable of a person as I should be, especially considering all of the great support that I get from you listeners and all the great support that I get just from friends and family and whatever, and how blessed I am to have the job that I have and do what I do. It's not about that. It's truthfully about how powerful I think professional sports are, the Sacramento Kings are, in bringing families together, and the fact that I could help contribute to that in any kind of way, and all the amazing mothers and fathers out there that use the Sacramento Kings and use these Kings games to make core memories for their children. Who knows if those children are going to grow up to be basketball players themselves and be inspired in that way. Maybe they'll be inspired the way I was inspired to talk about the game and cover the game for a living. Whatever it is, thank you for what you do, and thank you for investing in your child in that way, because I was that child, and so many of you listening probably were that child, and that just means a lot to me. So, I know, weird, sappy, dumb way to end the Locked On Kings podcast tonight, but I'm feeling very grateful tonight for that letter. And that's a letter that I'm going to keep with me for a while, especially, I just want to read that line again. I will never forget going with my dad. Like, that is, I hope I get to hear my son say that from me, just like I will never forget going to games with my uncle. Thank you so much for listening to the Locked On Kings podcast. Sorry, the Kings lost. I'm okay with it. Let's see how the Kings respond with the Pelicans coming up in 2 games against the Rockets. If indeed De'Aaron Fox is missing time because his family is expanding, congratulations to the beautiful Fox family. And thank you to all of you who continue to support Locked On Kings, no matter what you're going through or what's going on. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and how much I love doing this for you. I can't wait to broadcast the next time. It'll be after the Pelicans game, more likely than not, unless I have to do an emergency podcast or anything comes up. I hope you have a great, safe, and fun weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Until next time, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.